Vivian Hale's 35th birthday party ended in a silence so thick you could choke on it. The champagne flutes remained untouched on their silver trays. The three-tier cake from that bakery on Madison sat pristine under ambient lighting, its fondant surface reflecting nobody's joy. Ethan Walker, catering staff and single father of one, had only meant it as a throwaway comment to break the suffocating formality. So, marry me then. Nobody laughed. The most powerful woman in the room looked at him as though he'd just reached into her chest and squeezed something she'd spent years protecting. Her expression wasn't anger. It was something worse, recognition of a wound she'd never allowed anyone to acknowledge. 3 seconds passed. Each one felt like falling. Then she turned and walked away. Ethan didn't know it yet, but that single joke had just rewritten both their lives. The Hale Industries Executive Lounge occupied the entire 42nd floor. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed Manhattan like a trophy, all glittering ambition and architectural triumph. The party itself felt less like a celebration and more like a brand activation event. Ethan had been working these corporate functions for 3 years. He knew the choreography: arrive early, set up the beverage station, smile professionally, remain invisible. Tonight he was running on 4 hours of sleep because Mia had woken up twice with nightmares about the math test she'd failed last week. Champagne? He offered a tray to a cluster of executives discussing quarterly projections. They took glasses without looking at him. He'd stopped taking it personally 2 years ago. Ryan Chen, another catering staffer and the closest thing Ethan had to a work friend, appeared at his elbow. "Have you seen the birthday girl? She looks thrilled to be here." Ethan glanced across the room. Vivian Hale stood near the windows, holding a glass of sparkling water she wasn't drinking. Her posture was perfect, her smile practiced, her entire presence radiating controlled competence. She wore black, always black, and her dark hair was pulled back so severely it looked painful. "Can you blame her?" Ethan murmured. "This doesn't feel like a birthday party. It feels like a board meeting with cake." 35 and still single, Ryan said, not unkindly. "That's got to be a choice, right? Woman that successful, that smart, don't start." Ethan moved toward the kitchen to refill his tray. "I'm just saying, man. She could have anyone she wanted, could she?" Ethan wasn't sure why he said it. Exhaustion, maybe. Or the bone-deep frustration of another 16-hour day that wouldn't quite cover Mia's dental appointment next month. Having power and having options aren't the same thing. Ryan grinned. "You should tell her that. Sweep her off her feet." "Excuse me, Miss Hale, I couldn't help but notice you're alone. Have you considered marrying a guy who can barely afford his own rent?" The joke should have ended there. But at that exact moment, Vivian Hale walked past them toward the restroom corridor, and Ryan, idiot, beautiful. Oblivious Ryan raised his voice just slightly. "She's still single, I'm telling you." Vivian's step faltered. Just for a second. But Ethan saw it, and then God help him he was speaking. Not to impress, not to flirt, just to fill the horrible space that Ryan's thoughtlessness had created. Then, I guess, his voice came out rougher than intended. "Marry me." It wasn't a question. Wasn't even really directed at her. It was meant to be absurd, obviously satirical. The kind of dark humor you use when you're too tired to filter properly. But Vivian stopped walking. Turned. Looked directly at him. Her face was perfectly composed. But her eyes, there was something in them that made Ethan's stomach drop. Not anger, not embarrassment. Something older and more complicated. Like watching someone accidentally trigger a landmine you'd buried years ago. "Excuse me?" Her voice was quiet, controlled. Ethan's brain caught up with his mouth. "I'm sorry. That was inappropriate. I was making a joke." She finished his sentence. Her tone gave nothing away. "About my age and my availability. At my birthday party. In my building." The room had gone silent. Ethan was suddenly, painfully aware of every executive watching them, every phone potentially recording, every career consequence crystallizing in real time. "Miss Hale, I apologize. Completely, I wasn't. Thank you for your service tonight." She cut him off with the kind of professional courtesy that felt like a door closing. "I think we're finished here." She walked away. Not quickly. Not dramatically. Just away. The party dissolved within 10 minutes. Guests found excuses, checked their phones, remembered early meetings. The untouched cake was boxed up by another catering employee. Ethan didn't know. The champagne went back into storage. Ryan wouldn't look at him. Nobody would. Ethan finished his shift in a fog of adrenaline and dread, cleaning surfaces that were already clean, stacking chairs that didn't need stacking. At 10:47 p.m., he clocked out, rode the service elevator down 42 floors, and stepped into the November cold. His phone showed 3 missed calls from Mia's school and a text from his ex-mother-in-law. "Mia's asking for you. When are you coming?" He'd ruined everything. And for what? The subway ride to Ridgewood took 40 minutes. He spent all of them staring at his reflection in the window, watching himself disappear and reappear as the train moved through tunnels and stations. What had he been thinking? He hadn't. That was the problem. He'd been too tired, too stretched thin, too fucking tired of being invisible. And for one stupid second, he'd spoken like someone who mattered. Now he'd pay for it. They always did. People like him. People who forgot their place. Ethan picked up Mia at 11:30 p.m. from his ex-mother-in-law's house in Ridgewood. The porch light was off Brenda's passive-aggressive way of saying he was late again. "Daddy." Mia burst through the door before he could knock, all 7 years of her colliding into his legs. She smelled like apple shampoo and the vanilla candles Brenda kept everywhere. "Hey, sweetheart." He crouched down, pulling her into a proper hug. "Grandma said you're always late now." Mia's voice held no judgment, just observation. She had his gray eyes and her mother's stubborn chin, the only 2 things Sarah had left them before she decided marriage and motherhood weren't authentic to her journey, and moved to Portland with a yoga instructor named Kai. "I know, baby. I'm sorry." Brenda appeared in the doorway, arms crossed. She'd never forgiven him for not stopping Sarah from leaving, as if he'd had any power over a woman who'd already mentally checked out. "She had dinner at 6, Brenda said. "Bath at 8. She's been waiting up for you for 3 hours. "I know." "Thank you for watching her. You need to figure something out, Ethan. This isn't sustainable." "I know." He stood, keeping one hand on Mia's shoulder. "I'm working on it." The drive home, a 12-minute bus ride because he'd sold the car 8 months ago, was quiet. Mia pressed against his side, humming something from that animated movie about singing animals. She didn't complain about being tired. She never did. Their apartment was a 1-bedroom in a building that had been up and coming for 30 years. Mia slept in the bedroom. Ethan had a pull-out couch in the living room that only sometimes unfolded correctly. He got her ready for bed, read 3 chapters of the book about dragons and unlikely friendships, and stayed until her breathing evened out into sleep. Then he sat in the dark living room, staring at his phone. No messages from work. That could be good or catastrophic. He pulled up his banking app. $247 until Friday. Mia's after-school program was $180 a week. Groceries, maybe $60 if he was careful. That left $7 for everything else. His health insurance through Hale Industries was the only reason they survived. Mia's ADHD medication alone was $400 a month without coverage. If he lost this job, his hands were shaking. He'd joked about marriage to a woman who could erase him with a signature. A woman who probably had lawyers on speed dial. A woman whose birthday he'd just ruined with his exhausted, thoughtless mouth. What would he tell Mia? How would they manage? The apartment suddenly felt very small and very cold. Meanwhile, 42 floors above Manhattan, Vivian Hale stood in her corner office and looked at nothing. The party debris had been cleared. Her assistant had left flowers and a handwritten card on her desk. "Happy birthday, Miss Hale. Wishing you all the best," in handwriting too perfect to be sincere. She'd received 47 birthday messages today, most from business contacts. Some from family members she saw once a year. 2 from friends, if you could call them that anymore. None of them felt real. The joke hadn't been funny. But it hadn't been cruel either. Just careless. The way people are when they don't know they're stepping on landmines. "Marry me." She'd heard versions of that joke before. Usually from men who couldn't understand why a woman with her money and her resume wasn't attached to someone. Why she ate lunch alone. Why she never brought anyone to company events. As if being alone was a problem to solve instead of a choice she'd made after Kenneth. Kenneth, who'd proposed 4 years ago with a 3-carat ring and a PowerPoint presentation about their strategic partnership potential, who'd had his assistant schedule their intimacy into his calendar like client meetings, who'd suggested she consider stepping back from the CEO role after children. Because someone needs to be the primary caregiver, and my career trajectory is frankly more established. She'd said no. He'd acted surprised, as if she'd broken a contract they'd never actually negotiated. That was the last time she'd let anyone close enough to ask. The catering worker Ethan, his name tag had said, hadn't been asking, hadn't been suggesting anything at all. He'd just been tired and stupid and probably didn't mean a single word. But for a second, when he'd said it, she'd felt something sharp and hot under her ribs. Not attraction. Recognition. He'd looked at her like she was lonely. Because she was. And that was somehow worse than all the strategic partnership proposals in the world. Vivian picked up her phone, pulled up the employee directory, found his name. Ethan Walker. Catering Services. ID #74521. She stared at the profile, no photo, just basic information. Hired 3 years ago, no disciplinary notes, no complaints. She should fire him. It would be cleaner, easier. Instead, she set the phone down and stood there in the dark, surrounded by everything she'd built, wondering why success tasted like chalk. The email arrived at 7:48 a.m., just as Ethan was dropping Mia off at school. From v.hale@haleindustries.com to e.walker@haleindustries.com. Subject: Meeting request. Mr. Walker, please report to the executive floor at 2 p.m. today. Reception will direct you. V. Hale. No explanation. No context. Just the digital equivalent of a summons. Mia was pulling on his hand, trying to show him the art project taped in the school hallway. "Daddy, look, that's the one I made with the purple." "That's beautiful, sweetheart." He barely saw it. His vision had tunneled to the phone screen, to those 12 words that might as well have been a termination notice. "You're not looking. I'm sorry." He crouched down, forced himself to focus on her face. She pointed to a construction paper tree with googly eyes. "It's a friendship tree. Miss Jessica said we should give our friends names, so I gave mine yours." Something in his chest cracked a little. "I love it. It's perfect. Are you okay? You look scared." Kids saw everything. "I'm fine, baby. Just thinking about work." "Is it bad?" "I don't know yet." He kissed her forehead, watched her run into the building with her backpack bouncing, and stood on the sidewalk with the email burning a hole in his pocket. At 1:55 p.m., Ethan stepped out of the elevator onto the 42nd floor, wearing his only good shirt, the one he saved for parent-teacher conferences, and shoes he'd polished that morning with hand soap because he couldn't afford actual polish. The receptionist, a young woman named Claire who'd always been kind to him, looked up with something like sympathy. "Miss Hale is expecting you." Conference room B. Not her office. A conference room. More formal. Probably witnesses. He was getting fired. Had to be. The conference room was smaller than he expected. Windows on one side, a table for 6, and Vivian Hale sitting alone with a leather portfolio closed in front of her. "Mr. Walker, please sit." He sat, tried not to look as terrified as he felt. For a long moment, she just looked at him. Not coldly, not angrily, just looking, like she was trying to solve an equation that wasn't adding up. "I'm not firing you," she said finally. The relief was so sudden he almost laughed. "Oh, thank you. But I need to understand something." She leaned forward slightly. "Last night, when you said what you said, was it because you genuinely found the situation funny, or because you pitied me?" The question was so direct it knocked the prepared apology right out of his mouth. "I what?" "It's a simple question. Were you making fun of me, or feeling sorry for me?" Ethan's brain scrambled. "Neither. I wasn't thinking at all. My coworker made a stupid comment, and I was trying to make it less awkward, and instead I made it worse, and I'm so sorry." "Why would my being single be awkward?" He stopped, stared at her. She wasn't letting him off easy. She wanted a real answer. "It shouldn't be," he said slowly, "but people, they treat it like it is. Like there's something wrong with choosing not to. I don't know. Partner up, according to schedule. And you? Do you think there's something wrong with it?" "No," he meant it. "I think people make assumptions. About women especially. That you must be too picky, or too focused on work, or—" He stopped himself. "I'm sorry. This isn't appropriate." "What's not appropriate?" "Me. Talking to you like we're equals. We're not. Because I'm your employer. Because you're you, and I'm a guy who serves drinks and cleans up after parties. You could destroy my life before lunch and not remember it by dinner." The words came out harder than he'd intended. But they were true, and he was tired of pretending otherwise. Vivian's expression shifted. Not offended. Something closer to understanding. "Is that why you think I called you here? To destroy you? Isn't it?" "Mr. Walker, Ethan, I didn't call you here to punish you. I called you here because that joke, stupid as it was, is the most honest thing anyone said to me in years." He had no idea what to do with that. She opened the portfolio. Inside was a single sheet of paper, a printed engagement announcement from 4 years ago. Kenneth Morrison and Vivian Hale, smiling in coordinated business casual against a neutral backdrop. "This was going to be in the Times," she said quietly, "until I realized he'd already picked out names for our children. Had already decided I'd be stepping down as CEO within 5 years. Had already planned my entire future without asking me what I actually wanted." She closed the portfolio. "So, when you made that joke last night, marry me, just like that, like it's nothing, you touched something I've spent 4 years trying to forget, which is that marriage proposals, for women like me, are almost never about love. They're about strategy. Optics. Convenience." Ethan felt like he'd walked into the wrong conversation. "Miss Hale, do you know what the worst part is?" She wasn't looking at him anymore. "I almost said yes to Kenneth, because I was 31 and successful, and everyone kept asking when I was going to settle down. Like success wasn't enough. Like I needed someone else to be complete." "You don't," Ethan said. It came out fiercer than he'd planned. "Need anyone, to be complete." She looked at him then. Really looked like she was seeing him for the first time. "Your joke was thoughtless," she said, "but it wasn't malicious. And I overreacted, because I'm tired of being reminded that my life doesn't look the way people think it should. I understand that." And he did. Every parent-teacher conference where he showed up alone, every school form that asked for mother's name and he had to write N.A., every pitying look from married parents who couldn't imagine raising a kid solo, probably more than you'd think. Something passed between them then. Not attraction, not pity, just recognition. Two people who'd been judged by the shapes their lives didn't take. "I'm sorry," he said again. For real this time. Not because I'm scared of being fired, but because I hurt you, and you didn't deserve that." Vivian nodded slowly. "Apology accepted. And I'm sorry for making you think I'd ruin your life over one bad joke. You could have. I could have, but that's not the person I want to be." She stood, signaling the meeting was over. Ethan stood too, relief and confusion mixing into something he couldn't name. At the door, she paused. "Mr. Walker, Ethan, you were right about one thing. We're not equals. But that doesn't mean you don't matter." He didn't know what to say to that. So he just nodded and left, the words following him all the way down 42 floors. Over the next 3 weeks, Ethan started noticing her in places CEOs didn't typically go. The third-floor break room at 2:30 p.m. on a Tuesday. The loading dock on Thursday morning. The hallway outside the janitorial supply closet. She didn't approach him. Didn't speak. Just appeared. Like she was testing the geography of her own building for the first time. Once, he looked up from refilling coffee supplies and found her standing near the window, staring at the street below. She was wearing her usual black suit, but her hair was down the first time he'd ever seen it that way. It made her look younger, less fortified. He didn't say anything. Neither did she, but something was shifting. He could feel it. Ryan noticed too. "Is it just me? Or is the Ice Queen slumming it lately?" "Don't call her that," Ethan said automatically. Ryan raised an eyebrow. "Protective much? She's not what people think. And you know this because?" Ethan didn't answer. Because the truth that they'd had one honest conversation and it had somehow rewired his understanding of power sounded insane. Vivian knew she was being obvious. Knew her assistant had started asking careful questions about her schedule. Knew the HR director had probably noticed her sudden interest in workplace culture assessment. She couldn't help it. That conversation with Ethan had cracked something open. Made her realize how small her world had become. How every relationship in her life was transactional. How she'd confused isolation for independence. She started paying attention to the people who actually kept the building running. Learned names, noticed schedules, realized that the man who'd accidentally proposed to her worked 16-hour days to support a daughter he never complained about. She didn't have a plan. Didn't know what she was doing. She just knew that going back to the fortified version of herself felt impossible now. The accident was minor. Mia had tripped in the school parking lot and scraped her knee badly enough to need bandaging, but the timing was catastrophic. Ethan was on shift. Brenda was in Connecticut visiting her sister. The school needed him there immediately. His supervisor, a perpetually stressed woman named Marion, did not take the news well. "Ethan, I can't keep covering for you. We're understaffed as it is. I know. I'm sorry. But she's 7, and she's scared, and there's no one else." Marion pinched the bridge of her nose. "Bring her here. Keep her in the break room. But if she causes any disruption, she won't, I promise." Mia sat on a bench in the employee break room, her knee bandaged, clutching the stuffed rabbit she'd insisted on bringing. She was being so quiet, so good, trying not to be a problem. It broke Ethan's heart. "You okay, sweetheart?" "I'm fine. Does it look bad? For you to bring me here?" "Don't worry about that. You're more important. Grandma says I make things hard for you." Ethan knelt down in front of her. "Grandma is wrong. You are the best thing in my entire life. Don't ever forget that." She nodded, but he could see the doubt in her face. 7 years old and already learning to feel like a burden. He had to get back to the event, some product launch on the 30th floor, but he couldn't leave her alone. "I'll be right back, okay?" 10 minutes. "There are books in my bag." "Okay, Daddy." He made it 9 minutes before he heard the voice. "You must be Mia." He ran back to the break room to find Vivian Hale sitting on the bench next to his daughter, examining the stuffed rabbit with apparent seriousness. "What's their name?" Vivian asked. "Clover," Mia said. "She's a girl rabbit. Clover is an excellent name." very dignified. Ethan stood in the doorway, paralyzed. "Miss Hale," Vivian looked up. "Ethan, your supervisor mentioned Mia was here. I hope it's all right. I heard there was an injury. It's just a scraped knee. I'm sorry, I'll keep her out of the way. She's not in the way." Vivian turned back to Mia. "I used to fall down a lot when I was your age. I have a scar on my elbow from trying to climb a tree I had no business climbing." Mia's eyes went wide. "Really? You climbed trees?" "All the time. Drove my mother crazy." Ethan watched his daughter warm to this stranger in the expensive suit, watched Vivian respond with a gentleness he hadn't known she possessed, and felt something dangerous take root in his chest. After a few more minutes of conversation about trees and rabbits and favorite colors, Mia said something that made them both stop. "You're like the princess in the tower." Vivian blinked. "What?" "In my book. There's a princess who lives in a really tall tower, and she has everything she needs, but she's still sad because she's all alone. You remind me of her." The silence that followed was profound. Ethan wanted to apologize, to explain that Mia sometimes said things without filters, but Vivian spoke first. "You're very perceptive, Mia." Her voice was quiet. "And you're right. Sometimes towers are lonely, even when they're beautiful. In the story, she comes down from the tower, and she's scared at first, but then she makes friends, and it's better." Vivian looked at Ethan. Something passed between them, understanding, permission, possibility. "Maybe I should try that," Vivian said. Later, after Mia had been picked up by a finally returned Brenda, after the product launch had wrapped and the guests had left, Ethan found Vivian standing in the same third-floor break room. "Thank you," he said, "for being kind to her. She's remarkable. You're raising her well. I'm trying. Most days I feel like I'm failing. That's not what I see." Vivian turned to face him. "I see a man who puts his daughter first, always. Who works impossible hours and never complains. Who apologizes when he's wrong and stands up when he needs to. You barely know me. I know enough?" She paused. "She's your whole world." "You said that. She is. I don't have that. A whole world. I have a company and a reputation and a bank account that means nothing when I go home to an empty house. Miss Hale, Vivian. Please, Vivian." The name felt strange in his mouth. Intimate. Your life isn't empty. It's just different from what people expect. Is different enough? He didn't have an answer, but he stayed there with her in that industrial break room, with its fluorescent lights and coffee-stained counters, and for the first time in years, neither of them felt quite so alone. The rumors started small, whispers in the break room. Looks that lasted too long. Questions from HR about workplace relationships that weren't technically questions. Someone had seen them talking. Multiple times. In places that seemed deliberately private. The story grew teeth. Single dad seduces CEO for job security. CEO having crisis, slumming with staff. What's really going on between them? Ethan felt it first in the schedule changes. Suddenly he was working overnight shifts, weekends, events where Vivian wouldn't be present. Then came the isolation. Coworkers who'd been friendly turned cold. Ryan stopped sitting with him at lunch. Marion started documenting every minor mistake, coffee temperature, uniform cleanliness, arrival times. He could handle it. Adults whispering didn't hurt him. But when Mia came home from school crying because another kid had said your dad is trying to marry someone rich so you don't have to be poor anymore, something in him snapped. She'd heard it from her classmate's mother. Who'd heard it from someone who worked at Hale Industries. Who'd heard it from someone else. The gossip had escaped the building and infected his daughter's life. That night, after Mia finally cried herself to sleep, Ethan sat in the dark and made a decision. He wasn't disappearing, wasn't apologizing for something he hadn't done, wasn't teaching his daughter that rumors win. The HR office was on the 15th floor. Ethan requested a meeting through the proper channels, waited 3 days for approval, and showed up with a folder of documentation. The HR director, a woman named Patricia Downs who'd been with the company for 20 years, looked surprised to see him. "Mr. Walker, please." "Sit." He sat, placed the folder on her desk. "I'm here to file a formal complaint about workplace harassment." Patricia's eyebrows rose. Harassment? Schedule retaliation, social isolation, hostile work environment, and most critically, the spread of unsubstantiated rumors that have now affected my child. He opened the folder. Inside were printouts of his schedule changes, timestamps of conversations, a note from Mia's school counselor about the bullying incident. "I have done nothing inappropriate. I have not violated any company policy. I have not engaged in any conduct that would warrant this treatment. But because I had one conversation with Miss Hale, a conversation she initiated. In a professional setting, I'm being systematically pushed out." Patricia reviewed the documentation carefully. "These are serious allegations. They're supported by evidence. I'm not asking for special treatment. I'm asking for my job to be evaluated based on my work, not on what people assume about my personal life." "Has Miss Hale?" "Miss Hale has been nothing but professional. This isn't about her. This is about employees who think they can weaponize gossip." Patricia closed the folder. "I'll need to investigate this." "I understand. But while you investigate, I need my schedule corrected. And I need a formal statement from this office that the rumors are unsubstantiated and will not be tolerated. My daughter is 7 years old. She shouldn't be crying about something she doesn't understand because adults can't mind their business." For the first time since entering the office, Ethan felt the full weight of his conviction. He wasn't begging, wasn't apologizing. He was demanding the dignity he'd earned. Patricia nodded slowly. "I'll schedule a meeting with your supervisor, and I'll draft a statement regarding workplace conduct." "Thank you." As he stood to leave, she said, "Mr. Walker, for what it's worth, I believe you, and I'm sorry this happened. It wasn't justice, but it was a start." The management meeting was scheduled for Thursday at 10 a.m. Department heads only. Vivian rarely attended these. Her time was better spent on strategic planning, but this time she'd requested the invitation herself. Patricia Downs presented the harassment complaint in clinical terms. No names at first, just facts. Schedule manipulation, documented retaliation, rumors affecting an employee's family. Then she named Ethan Walker. The room shifted. Vivian watched faces carefully, saw the knowing looks, the barely concealed judgment. Marion, the catering supervisor, spoke first. "With all due respect, Miss Hale, this employee has been difficult lately. The schedule changes were due to operational needs. Show me the documentation." Vivian said quietly, "I'm sorry? Operational needs require documentation. Show me the staffing analysis that justified moving Mr. Walker to overnight shifts exclusively." Marion's face went red. "It was. I made a judgment call based on rumors. Which is exactly what Mr. Walker is alleging." The room went silent. Vivian stood. She rarely stood during meetings. It was an intimidation tactic she'd abandoned years ago, but this required it. "I want to be absolutely clear about something. Ethan Walker did nothing wrong. He made a poorly timed joke at my birthday party. I accepted his apology. That should have been the end of it." "Miss Hale," someone tried to interrupt. "I'm not finished." Her voice didn't rise. Didn't need to. What happened instead is that employees, many of whom are in this room, decided to punish him for something they imagined. They created a narrative about his character, about his intentions, about his relationship with me, and they did it without a single piece of evidence. She looked directly at Marion. "You changed his schedule to make his life harder, because you assumed he was using me. Because in your mind, someone in his position couldn't possibly be a person I'd speak to otherwise. I didn't mean. What you meant doesn't matter. What you did was retaliate against an employee for something that existed entirely in your imagination. And in the process, you hurt his child. The room was frozen. Here's what's going to happen. Mr. Walker's schedule will be restored to his original shifts. There will be a company-wide memo about workplace conduct and the consequences of spreading unsubstantiated rumors. And every person who participated in ostracizing him will receive a formal warning in their file. Miss Hale, Patricia said carefully, there may be questions about your proximity to this situation. Then let me answer them now. I spoke with Mr. Walker twice, once to accept his apology, once when his daughter was injured at school. Both conversations were appropriate. Both were professional. And if anyone in this company has a problem with the CEO speaking to a catering employee, they're welcome to find work elsewhere. She gathered her materials. This meeting is over. Patricia, please prepare the memo. I want it sent by end of day. As she walked out, she heard someone whisper, "She's protecting him." She stopped, turned back. No. I'm protecting the principle that nobody in this company should be punished for something they didn't do. If that makes me protective, then yes, I am. The memo went out at 4:47 p.m. Work. Workplace conduct and professional standards. It has come to management's attention that certain employees have engaged in behavior inconsistent with Hale Industries' values of respect and professionalism, spreading rumors, engaging in retaliation, and creating hostile work environments will not be tolerated. All employees, regardless of position, deserve to be evaluated based on their work performance, not on speculation about their personal lives. Any future incidents will result in immediate disciplinary action, up to and including termination. Vivian Hale, CEO. Ethan read it 3 times. Then he sat on his pull-out couch and put his head in his hands. She'd stood up for him. Publicly. Knowing it would invite scrutiny. Knowing it would fuel more rumors. She'd chosen his dignity over her convenience. He didn't know how to process that kind of loyalty from someone who owed him nothing. The invitation came via email, personal address instead of work. Ethan, I'd like to apologize properly, not as your employer, just as a person who handled this badly. Would you and Mia like to come to dinner? Saturday, 6 p.m. Nothing fancy. Just food and maybe a chance to reset. No pressure. I understand if you'd rather not. She'd included an address. A house in Park Slope, not a penthouse apartment. Maple Lane, not Manhattan. Ethan stared at the email for 2 days before responding. We'll be there. The house was small. Not by normal standards, 3 bedrooms, renovated kitchen, backyard, but small for someone with Vivian Hale's resources. It looked like a place someone actually lived, not a showroom. Vivian answered the door in jeans and a sweater, hair in a loose braid. No suit, no armor. Hi. She smiled nervously. Come in. Mia immediately spotted the cat, a massive orange tabby, sprawled on the couch and gasped with delight. That's Pumpkin, Vivian said. He's friendly, but he thinks he owns the place. Can I pet him? Absolutely. While Mia made friends with the cat, Ethan followed Vivian into the kitchen. It smelled like garlic and herbs, something simmering on the stove. You cook? He said, surprised. I do. Badly sometimes, but I try. She stirred the pot. I made pasta, and there's salad, and bread from the bakery down the street because my bread always turns out like weapons. He laughed. Couldn't help it. What? She looked defensive. Nothing. You're just different here. Good different or strange different. Human different. She relaxed. I don't get to be human very often. At work, I'm the CEO. At events, I'm the brand. Here, she gestured around the modest kitchen. Here, I'm just someone who burns garlic and can't fold fitted sheets. They ate at the kitchen table, the 3 of them, with Pumpkin supervising from his perch on the windowsill. Mia talked about school, about her math test, still struggling, about the friendship tree project. Vivian listened like every word mattered. After dinner, Mia helped clear plates. Ethan had taught her that, and then fell asleep on the couch with Pumpkin, her head on a throw pillow decorated with sunflowers. Ethan and Vivian stood in the kitchen, washing dishes in comfortable silence. "Thank you," Ethan said finally, "for the memo, for this, for treating her like she matters. She does matter. So do you." Vivian dried a plate carefully. "I'm sorry it took a crisis for me to realize how toxic that place had become. It's not your fault. It's my company. Everything that happens there is my responsibility. You can't control how people think. No. But I can control how I respond when they're wrong." She set down the dish towel, looked at him directly. "Can I ask you something? And you can absolutely say no." "Okay." That joke. At the party. The question knocked the air out of his lungs. I wasn't. "I know. But hypothetically," Ethan leaned against the counter. "Thought about it. Really thought. Partnership," he said finally. "Not a transaction. Not a strategy. Just someone who sees you and stays anyway. Even the messy parts, especially the messy parts." Vivian nodded slowly. "I've never had that. The staying. Neither have I. My ex-wife left because I wasn't enough. Or I was too much. I'm still not sure which. Maybe she didn't deserve you. Maybe neither of us deserved each other." He looked at her. "What about you?" "Kenneth?" Kenneth wanted a wife who looked good in holiday cards and didn't challenge him. "I wanted someone who saw me as a person, not a resume." "You're definitely a person." She smiled. "Some days I forget." Mia stirred on the couch but didn't wake. The kitchen light cast everything in warm amber. "This is dangerous," Vivian said quietly. "You know that, right? People are already talking. If this becomes something, then let them talk. I'm tired of living like other people's opinions matter more than my own life. Your job. I'll find another one if I have to. But I won't pretend you're not." He stopped. Started again. "I won't pretend this isn't real. What is this? I don't know yet. But I'd like to find out." Vivian looked at him for a long time. Then she took his hand. Just held it, their fingers interlacing naturally. "I'd like that too." They took it slowly, deliberately. Dinner once a week, always at the Maple Lane house. Walks in Prospect Park with Mia between them, holding both their hands. Phone calls after Mia was asleep. The kind of rambling conversations that meant nothing and everything. Vivian started leaving work at reasonable hours. Started saying no to events that drained her. Started building a life that had room for people in it. Ethan enrolled Mia in a better after-school program, one that didn't require Brenda's constant help. Started applying for day shift positions at other companies, just in case. Started believing that maybe, possibly, he deserved something good. The gossip at Hale Industries never fully died, but it lost its teeth. Vivian's memo had established boundaries. People still whispered, but they did it quietly. 3 months after that first dinner, Vivian met Brenda. It went better than expected. Brenda was suspicious until Vivian spent an hour asking genuine questions about Mia's medical history and learning preferences, then thawed considerably. 6 months in, Vivian's mother came to visit. That went worse. But Vivian stood her ground. "If you can't respect Ethan, you're not welcome in my life." Her mother left. Sent a card 2 weeks later. "I was wrong. I'd like to meet him again." Progress was slow, messy, real. 1 year after the birthday party, Ethan stood in Vivian's kitchen making pancakes while she read the newspaper at the table. Mia was drawing at the counter, Pumpkin supervising. It was the most domestic scene imaginable, and the most perfect. "Vivian, She didn't look up from the article about supply chain disruptions. Remember my joke? At your party? Now she looked up. How could I forget? I didn't mean it then. He flipped a pancake. But I mean it now. The newspaper lowered. What? Marry me. He turned to face her. No joke this time. No poor timing. Just, I love you. Mia loves you. And I want to build a life where we don't have to keep pretending this is casual. Mia's crayon stopped moving. Are you asking Vivian to be my stepmom? If she says yes, are you going to say yes? Mia asked Vivian seriously. Because Daddy's really good at pancakes, and I can teach you about Clover, and Pumpkin can be the ring bearer. Vivian laughed, the real laugh, not the professional one. Pumpkin would be a terrible ring bearer. He'd just eat the ribbons. So is that a yes? Vivian stood, crossed the kitchen, took Ethan's hand. That's a yes. They got married 6 months later in Vivian's backyard. Small ceremony. Mia as flower girl. Pumpkin in a tiny bow tie. Vivian's mother crying. Brenda crying harder. Ryan as best man, properly contrite. The cake was from the same bakery that had catered the birthday party. This time, they cut it together. When they kissed, Mia cheered. Pumpkin knocked over a centerpiece. It was perfect. 2 years later, on Vivian's 38th birthday, they threw a party. Real one this time. Friends, family, people who actually cared. Mia gave a toast. When I was 7, I told Vivian she was like a princess in a tower. Now she's just my mom who burns garlic. I like this version better. Everyone laughed. Vivian cried. Later, when the guests had left and Mia was asleep upstairs, Ethan and Vivian sat on the back porch with glasses of wine. Happy birthday, Ethan said. Best one yet. Better than the one where I proposed? That one changed my life. This one, I get to live it. She leaned against him. He put his arm around her. Inside, Pumpkin knocked something off the counter. They didn't get up to check. Some things mattered more than perfect houses and flawless presentations. Some things like this, like them, like the family they'd built from a terrible joke and one honest conversation, were worth every messy, imperfect moment. I love you, Vivian said. I love you too. And the tower, at last, was empty.